Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Here.
Here. Angeli?
Here.
Vining?
Here.
Germaine?
Here.
Lamore?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here. I'd ask you all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide our working together. Give us wisdom to make the right decisions, your understanding to listen to each other, and your compassion to promote the peace and welfare of the residents of this community.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, next item, please.
The next item would be any amendments to the agenda.
Looking to the manager or council, any amendments? Seeing none. Before we get in, next item on the agenda.
So the next item is citizen comments not related to an agenda item.
So I'll take this opportunity because I know that a few have talked with the council and myself as well about wanting to make comments. If you have received and reviewed the agenda, there is an item on the agenda which is, of course, a presentation by City Manager Mr. Pastu regarding the Arthur Lezo Community Center. So that is an agenda item. That does not mean that we're not going to take comments. So to make this, I guess, manageable and have our conversation, I'll say collective and then within the context of the presentation as well, we will take comments from the public during the present or after the presentation, but also, again, later at the end of the meeting, there's citizens' comment. That doesn't mean we're going to take citizens' comments now. We will if there's comments that are not related to an agenda item. So, Clerk, I think you've already announced it, correct? Mm-hmm. So at this time, are there any citizens' comments not related to an agenda item? Any comments from not related to an agenda item? Again, I'll remind everybody that as we get toward the agenda and the presentation, we'll make sure we have comments and opportunities for everybody to speak at that time. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is a public hearing. Item 2465, CDBG Annual Action Plan Public Hearing. Public hearing to receive and hear comments on the proposed 2019-20 Community Development Block Grant, Budget, and Annual Action Plan. And there are no comments on file in the Clerk Treasurer's office.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 2465, the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan Public Hearing. Are there any comments from those present here this evening regarding the CDBG Annual Action Plan? Any comments from those present here this evening? Seeing none, I'll see if there's any comments from council as well. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for approval of payments under item B, the amount should read $2,051,433.53. 2051433.53.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing none from the council, are there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items from those present here this evening on the consent agenda? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Your Honor.
Councilman Lamore.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, have all of its actions carried out and recorded by the clerk.
Support.
There's a motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed in file, recommendations carried out. Further comments from council? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Angeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is a presentation, item 2471. Discussion. Arthur Lezo Community Center.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. Following the action 2 weeks ago to provide notice to terminate the lease agreement, but also the direction council to provide that we continue with services and programs as they exist. I indicated at that time I'll put together a framework for some alternatives for city council to consider. In the context of how we got to where we're at, I'm going to go through briefly my notes on it. As a reminder, the city has provided some assistance with the ALCC board with governance and operations. We talked about the facilitated joint strategic plan in early 2017. Last year in 2018 with the lease and funding agreement that provided some incorporated goals and objectives from the strategic plan. And then also the board workshop where there was two work sessions held with the ALCC board involving Florence Buchanan and Mr. Cochran last fall. The recent concerns and challenges that came to our attention, and I kind of break it into two. One is kind of what I would call weak financial internal controls. We know about the operating loss, and I'll make that abundantly clear, an operating loss in which the expenditures were greater than revenues in the first quarter, and that was presented to us at a meeting in late May. Bank statements, I was concerned that we hadn't seen those now as of last Friday. We've received the April and May bank statements for the ALCC. About a month ago, the director mentioning that he may miss a pay period given the concern with the cash flow. And then certainly some uncertainty that we have with the audit report and the 990 filing that goes with any nonprofit to the IRS. And then most recently, suspension of the Commission on Aging funding that was action taken last week. Some of the continued governance challenges, certainly involving the role of the board, chairperson, and executive director. We've had some inconsistent communications amongst board members, agenda disbursement, some confusion, if you will, regarding responsibilities and handling various administrative items, adherence to bylaws, and then I will tell you just frequent board turnover. There's been a lot of board turnover, certainly in the last couple of years. The other thing with it is, I think, is important to keep in the context is the city's ongoing commitment. Continue to provide the $140,000 appropriation plus the $16,000 for utilities. City's responsible for the capital maintenance of the building, which includes grounds, parking lot, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And this last year, there was over $100,000 through a grant that we received for a number of projects, namely the roof replacement, boiler replacement, and some asbestos abatement in the boiler room. Tonight, council already taken action on the action plan is that there's $300,000 in community development block grant funds programmed over the next 2 years for a kitchen addition and reprogramming of the existing kitchen, plus the $1.2 million we're anticipating to spend toward improvements at Labor Park. Some of the general observations that just from myself, facility functions more as a neighborhood center than a broader community center, and that's okay. I think that's fine. Historically, the ALCC board has been very hands-on regarding operations. I make a point of that in the sense that I'm used to, in the boards and commissions, having the executive director take a greater role in a lot of different functions that board members have historically been involved with. As I said last time, that the current board members, and I think even past, care deeply about the center and its importance in the neighborhood, that they are good people. There has been interest from numerous organizations and individuals willing to provide programs, services, and assistance to the center and in the broader community. The ALCC board desires to expand services, but has really not built the community relations, I think, necessary at this point, and something we talked about with our goals and objectives last year. And then just kind of an entrepreneurial spirit and drive that a lot of successful private nonprofits have. I put in there a note, a 2-year commitment, 2-year minimum reset, certainly again reiterating council's perspective from 2 weeks ago, maintain existing services and programs at a minimum, possibly gradually add programs and staff as facility capacity become available, obviously along with the funding. Need to remove, I think, the hands-on board culture that I think in some ways hinders some of the progress that can be made, and then gradually change expectations from what the center can be. I think in many cases it's viewed as a drop-in center, although there are other programs obviously that go on, but change it to a broader perspective. And so in all of that context, I looked at different alternatives to provide the council as a starting point for discussion with this. And one of them is city takes over basic operations, which includes personnel and program. They become city employees. If you use existing staff, you could potentially do that either through some agreement with an employment agreement and/or understanding with the collective bargaining unit regarding the nature of these positions. Greater reliance would take place with Parks and Rec staff providing oversight and administrative support. City's general administration, mostly payroll, payables, general accounting, purchasing, insurance-related things would come under this alternative. Council would be approving any contractual services, and then the building and site maintenance would still be the city's, although I will tell you in the last year and a half that has ramped up with the building department with some of the work they've been doing. The other alternative, and it's somewhat related to that, is, and somewhat also kind of a hybrid, if you will, of the city taking over the basic operations, but also having elements of the ALCC in there. And I'm somewhat intrigued with it, is the city establishing an independent commission. I say that in a sense that there's still some legal review that the city and attorney and I have been talking about. But again, the council would make the appointments and approve the budget. And again, I would anticipate that you would have membership on the board that would include neighborhood representation, education, social services, nonprofits, and other stakeholders in the community that may be a part of that. I do think that the commission would approve grant and service contracts. I think it provides a more nimble aspect that can focus more on the center and the park needs. And let me expand on the park. With Labor Park, one of our concerns is how the ALCC would interact with some of the new amenities with the park. If you had a established independent commission, I think you can make that link a little bit stronger in its enabling legislation. The personnel, again, being a community center, you're going to have run the gamut from full-time regular employees, part-time regular, to temporary employees, and even volunteers. And I do think that by having that kind of a structure with the commission, that you can have a little more flexibility to meet those personnel needs as well as the program needs as programs come and go. And then the other is a single audit consideration, something in which if you're receiving a pass-through of or direct allocation of federal funds, if you run it through the city and we exceed $750,000, we have to do a single audit by looking at an independent commission. And again, if this was successful with the programming and the grant end of it, they would have their own $750,000 and save us potentially on some money and extra time on that end. So those were the two of the city alternatives that I listed. And then obviously city contract for basic operations center and supplemental programs and services. There isn't any specific organization in mind at this point in time. And then the last alternative, if the council was to consider rescinding your action, you continue with the ALCC board in some capacity. So as a quick outline, I throw those out there for council as a starting point for considering and going forward with keeping ongoing operations and programs at the ALCC community building.
Before I take comments, as I said, public comments, we will take them at this presentation. We'll see if council has any questions for the city manager regarding some of what he's presented. I know I have one question, but I'll see if there's others. Councilwoman Germaine?
Vince, what would happen to the sports programs that would be down there? And the connectivity with the kids is what my concern is.
Well, I think that's part of, obviously, the alternatives is that you would look to have that continuity in place, either, certainly with the first alternative with the city taking over. I think we can provide that until there's a long-term structure established going forward, but it would require the existing personnel down there to agree to, work for the city on whatever basis that may be. But clearly, the message I got 2 weeks ago is to continue the service and programs to the extent possible.
So the people that are in place could be hired by the city?
Yes.
That's how that would work?
Yep. Well, that's an alternative,
And
yes.
Parks and Recreation would be a part of that as well?
that's that part of that first alternative, yes.
All
Yep.
right, thank you.
Other questions from council members? Mr. Pestu, I have one looking at your alternatives here. The second one, which just says establish an independent commission. Obviously, the city council has many boards and commissions that are appointed through recommendations of the mayor's office to the council's approval. And so just so not sure, just want to make sure, is that the same type of structure you'd be looking at, or how would a commission be formed?
I think there's two of them that we have that would probably most closely resemble what I would offer for consideration, and that would be the Housing Commission and the Port Commission as well. Those are, autonomous entities. You do make the appointments. There are appropriation in the case of the port as well. But they do enter into a lot of their own contracts and services. And I think the important thing with both of those is they have to be quick and nimble, as service demands and opportunities present themselves. We may move a little bit slower here sometimes because of our structure of every other week. And so in that regard, I think that's part of the reason for it is they could be a little more responsive in that capacity.
So just as an example, for those that I look out and I see a few that do serve on boards and commissions. We have certain boards that are kind of an advisory board. Some have maybe even some judicial opportunities, quasi-judicial decision-making. And some of the commissions also are advisory commissions. Recreation was that way, and we're revisiting that, but also the recent River Raisin Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission is kind of advising the council on activities that they believe. I'm just reviewing where's the Port and the Housing Commission, they have certain authorities to be able to take actions as the commission.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Other questions from council? Seeing none, as I stated, at the beginning, there was open comment at the beginning. There's going to be open comment at the end of the agenda, which is there. But with this presentation, I know that several that here have either chatted with myself or council members. Of course, wanted to speak to the topic of the ALCC. So as we start, and before we start, take comments, and I'm looking at the clerk. She has a comment to make first. Go ahead.
The first speaker up there just needs to make sure that the button is pushed on the microphone so that the green light is on. That's all I ask.
All right, thank you. So somebody has a responsibility who speaks first. But I'm reminded of the rules of the chamber, as we have in many cases, there's opportunities to speak, and we want to hear from those that have something to say by the chambers. Of course, we ask that you be clear and concise, but also it's 3 minutes. But also, you can't give your time to somebody else. It's on the council agenda that's posted, as well as I think there's other copies that are by the clerk's office. I ask you to please state your name, address if you're representing yourself or yourself, and if there's any needs that people have that speak, please let us know. So if there's no questions to that, as was stated, if there's public comment, we'll take it regarding this presentation. Of course, the topic was about the LCC. Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Well, let me push the button first to make
Public-
sure that
yeah.
it's on. Can you guys hear me?
Very good.
It is on, right?
It should be
sounds
green.
like it.
It sounds like you're on.
Awesome. My name is Jacqueline McGee, 1639 Fredericks Drive. I'm here today because I am extremely concerned with the direction that the council is going in with regards to the ALCC. I was horrified, and I'm using that word horrified, when I watched the council meeting from June 5th. I believe that was the date of it. I just want to make sure that I'm articulating myself correctly. But my concern is not that I disagree with everything that was said, but I disagree with how it was handled. I think that it could have been handled in a better way. I think that the council jumped the gun without having all the facts to the case. And I felt like that the council made a decision that was not really thought through. I am a past board member of the community center. And my concern, as well as everybody else's, it is the kids. It's always nice to say that we're all concerned about the kids and we're going to make sure the kids get taken care of. But in hindsight, that's all words to me, because it's just like after you graduate high school, you say, "Oh yeah, we're going to keep in touch," but it never happens. So, and that's just human nature, and I understand that. But I just want to make sure that the council is, you guys are doing your due diligence with regards to the ALCC. I tell you, I give much respect to Councilman Lamore and Councilman Felder, because you guys at least did ask the right questions. We are not always in a position where we always make the right decision, but I think in this case, I think that you guys probably should have thought it through. I think it just put ALCC in a bad light. So if they were gonna look for future funding, I think they would have a hard time getting future funding based on that article, because as far as I'm concerned, that whole article that was in the Monroe Evening News was full of lies, and it was full of holes. And so before something gets printed, you should print the truth. And Mr. Michelangelo, and I'm going to say this directly to your face, I do not appreciate how you went about this, because really, this is all about you. It's all about you. It wasn't about these kids. You've never been a fan of the East Side. You've never been a fan of the ALCC.
Jackie?
And there's nothing,
Make sure it's to everybody.
yep, there's nothing that you can tell me that can change my mind. So I'm glad to see that there is at least a proposed plan in place, even though Mr. Pastor, I'm not sure how to pronounce
Pastu.
your last name.
Let's go past two. That's
Yeah,
good.
Pastu, if I botched it, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But after 3 meetings, I don't think you can make a decision on the future of the ALCC. I know that I'm going to make this real short. I'm about to take my seat before you guys pull my shirt. But I think that after 3 meetings, you can't make a a good decision based on 3 meetings. I know, as being a past board member, that the council did give instructions to the ALCC. They created a strategic plan. They even changed their bylaws. And like I said, I'm not disagreeing with everything that you said. I think there should be a change, but it's how you go about the change is what bothers me. And so I hope in the future that, when you make a decision, that you take your time and make sure that you make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening? Name and address, please.
Lee Sharp, 5943 Roseland Avenue, Monroe. Your Honor, Mr. Pastu held a meeting on May 29th with representatives of the United Way, the YMCA, and the Central Labor Council that I represent. He stated his opinion of the issues with the ALCC board and the city's efforts to improve the performance of the board and the current problems the board's dealing with. He also asked for help from those in the room where to go from here. With much discussion of those in the room, we developed a path of direction that included help from officers from the Central Labor Council that I represent in providing mentoring, as the structure of our nonprofit is much like the structure of the ALCC board. He also told all of us that the subject would be discussed, not 2 weeks ago, but tonight. Mr. Pastu, 2 days later, sent an update to this city council that included the ALCC board topic and didn't mention the meeting with us or our commitment to mentor the board and the path that we agreed upon. He often suggests this ALCC board is dysfunctional, but as a member of this board, he's offered nothing to improve the performance of the board. This makes him part of the problem as well. And he said that the last city council meeting that the ALCC board lost $26,000 when he knew they overspent on overdue bills and wages. And that's a poor choice of words. Councilman Michelangelo made a motion to cancel the lease based on emotion. It's obvious he's clearly mad. He spoke of making hard decisions and having to pull the plug based only on part of the information available, and then asked this council to trust him that you all would figure something out. Then he offers solutions like closing the facility for 6 months, or as he said, mothball it until you figure it out. He said this has nothing to do with the kids, but everything that he wants to do will affect the kids and the rest of the community. His disdain for the board is clearly sent in his comments of not wanting to invite them here for discussion. And, oh, by the way, if you want to keep your nonprofit, that's fine. You're just not going to manage our facility. These comments aren't productive and are quite offensive to me. Councilwoman Whitman seconded the motion and later stated that her main concern is the kids, that they have people that are good examples. I'm not sure what she's suggesting about the people that are there now, but again, I take offense to this comment. And her comment about ending this nonprofit and starting another one seems a bit simple. Councilwoman Vining, she was in 2017 the vice chair of the ALCC board when the current bylaws revision was written and the current executive director and program director were hired. She also stated that she resigned because she wasn't aware of the financial situation. This makes me believe that she also had an opportunity to fix the problem, as she was signatory to the bank accounts, but she resigned. Councilwoman Germani, while she stood mostly silent on this issue, bought into removing the ALCC nonprofit with no answer as to what comes next. Councilman Lamore asked very good questions, made very good sense, and attempted to slow the motion until tonight's meeting. When he couldn't slow it, he voted no. I thank you. Councilman Felder, his questions about logistics and the 90-day timeline were good. His point of losing the United Way funding is both accurate and real. His discussion about tabling the motion in the spirit of fairness was well advised, and I thank him for his attendance at our Labor Council meeting last Monday. But while I appreciate him coming and explaining his position on the matter, I don't understand why he voted for this motion when he clearly didn't feel the time was right. And Mayor Clark, with your questions about notifying the ALCC board about potential action of this council and not providing an opportunity from hearing from the ALCC board, I would have expected a no vote from you as well. In conclusion, these actions of nearly all the council has left me considerably angry. You all acted without understanding the full story regarding the ALCC board and the involvement of the Central Labor Council. Our council voted unanimously to support this board with the mentoring. This is something we know we can help with. And the attitude of some of the council persons here on this issue is alarming, and we intend to assist this community in dealing with your underinformed decision. But as Councilman Michelangeli said, you've ripped the Band-Aid off quickly. And now we're left with the sting and trying to figure out how to move on.
Thank you, Lee. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir.
Jeff Hensley, 404 Union Council, Mr. Mayor. I agree that this decision, I believe, was rushed. I should have gave the community center board more time to try to work it out and should have reached out to more of us. I spent many years of my personal time on their board years ago. We had a wonderful board at that time. What has happened over the last couple of years, I'm really not aware. But I'm not up here to preach to you why you did it. You did it. What I'm asking is, have you given any thought to how you're going to fund that with the city manager's recommendation? Where is that tax money going to come from to staff it? I can't see you getting all the possible grants and fundraising and that the ALCC board would have the opportunity to get right now. Where is the city going to take the money from what city department to replace all the equipment? All the equipment in that building, if I'm not mistaken, belongs to the ALCC. So when they go in 90 days, I'm guessing they're going to take all that equipment with them. Who's going to replace it? Where is that money going to come from? I don't know if anybody can give me an answer to that. Same thing with operating the facility. City gave $140,000. Might as well double that. Where's that money going to come from? Is that going to be another one of our roads that are not getting paved or fixed? Is it going to be a police officer or a fireman that's not being replaced? Where is that money coming from? Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir. Well, there's first and back and then yourself. You'll be next. Thank you. Name and address, please.
Do I gotta press the button?
It should be on, should be green. I don't think it's
Okay, yeah,
changed.
it's
Thank you.
green. Martin Freeline, 1419 Peter Street. I am the chair of the board. It was hard to even fathom everything that was said because a year ago, Mr. Michelangeli shook my hand and said, "We're gonna help you out, Marty." You know, I don't understand. You take something like that, and even if you take it over to the city, you know, you told me to stand behind Mr. Hill's back, and that's what I did to support him and try to work together with you to help us function like we need to function. We're not dysfunctional, but as long as you keep on saying that in the paper, as long as you keep on getting that, how am I going to get anybody on the board? How are we going to vent anybody and talk to them to get them on the board to try to move forward? You can't. And that's what I'm saying. These guys, Mr. Hill, Miss Reed, has all the resources that all we got to do is work together, where it wouldn't really come back to the city paying for anything that you had to, that giving us funding that you were giving us. We need to work together. But if you go dismiss us right now, dismiss us. That's what I've been asking for 3 months. I talked to Vince myself. I said, hey, you want me to dismiss this board? He said, no. So let's blame it on us. Let's blame it on the ALCC board to put y'all in this position to where y'all wanted to take it over. Where a year ago, you could have said this, took it over, and you would be functioning, and then you could have hired whoever you wanted to hire. We went out and got it. Now we have an executive director, a program director, and we even have an accountant, and they're all working together, and we got programs and things are coming. I just don't understand. Somebody told me a year ago, you're gonna have to be a politician. I'm not a politician, people. I'm a football coach. That's what I do, that's what I love. I didn't understand because I'm a football coach. I make moves out on the field. I didn't know I had to be a politician to come in here to try to turn you guys to wanting to help kids, seniors, and help this community. Yeah, it's mainly on the east side, but you put in the paper that a lot of these seniors out at the high school don't know anything about the center. But trust me, they know where the center is. They know where the center is. I know they know where the center is. Not only have I been on the board, but I supervised there for 10 years. And I've seen a lot of seniors come in there. Now, what reason they came? But all I'm saying is none of that is happening now. They're genuinely, you can see a love, you can see a change. And all I'm asking you, if it's done, it's done. But all I'm asking is if you look at the heart, you look at what we want. Yeah, there's been spirited debates in that boardroom, but we're all trying to work together to solve it for the kids. We ain't trying to do it for us. There's no glory in this. My goodness, I look like an idiot. You've made me look like an idiot because looks like, well, Marty don't know what he's doing. The board don't know what they're doing. And it's negative. How do you expect anybody to get on the board and want to help us when you just took that? And I don't know what your decision, apparently your decision is to take it. September 13th, we already got the letter. And whatever you want us to do as a board, whatever you want us to do in the next 90 days, please send us emails and let us know what we need to do. Do I need to meet with my board or should I just let it go? What do you want me to do? Because that's where I'm at right now. I don't understand. When this comes on and it's, I was supposed to lean on Vince to help me. Well, he didn't do nothing. He was just in the meeting telling you what was going on, telling you there's dysfunction. We turned the corner. And I literally had them go to a 3-month to get the budget simply because we didn't know where we were. We could have easily lied and sent you guys that information, but we couldn't because I wanted it to be true. We finally got it a week ago, and we've reported a loss. But you got to remember, all you had in there was a executive director, and that was it. You never had a program director. You never had an accountant. Our accountant and our accountant and was also our secretary, was also a supervisor. We split that up so we could work towards programming and funding and everything for the kids. These people have the knowledge. I think we hired the right person. I just wanted to let you know there was a lot of things that went on. And I wish you would have talked to us before you made this decision. And I'm not holding on your heartstrings. I'm just telling you honestly, I know it's business. We get it. But what I want is for you to understand that when it comes down, you put this on this board instead of putting it on yourself. You should put it on yourself. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Omar Furden, 327 Arbor. Where do I begin? So, I want to start off by letting everybody know what I'm going to talk about is 3 minutes, I know. Praise, accountability, and gratitude and accountability. Okay? I'm not a board member on the ALCC. I'm not a city council member. I was born and raised in the Orchard East community. I don't even call it the East End. The East End. It's the Orchard East community. I love that community. I've been a volunteer member down there in all kinds of organizations, every event I can get my hands on for the past 20 years. Okay? So that's why to say that, 'cause I want you guys to know I love the community. I love the Orchard East community. I love that brick building, our community center, whatever you guys want to call it. So with that said, first thing I said I want to talk about was accountability. Okay? Everybody's up here talk about their feelings. Everybody wants to talk about feelings. Their feelings got hurt. And it's an ugly situation and feelings do get hurt. But what you guys did was hold somebody accountable for actions. I don't know all of the information. All I do know is somebody was held accountable. You guys held the board accountable. You guys put blame on the board. That's fine. I don't know much about gossip. I know gossip. I know little rumors. Rumors I've heard was the board that would have meetings. And Mr. Pasteur would be a liaison. Wouldn't be notified of the meetings. You guys were not getting agendas. The board also should have been held accountable for things. And I know people are going to lie. I love the community. I don't want people to be mad at me, but I know they're going to be. For instance, we talked about, Marty just came up and talked about the director right now being a good guy and everything. And he is. From what I talked to him, I know about him. But what I also do know about him is there was a meeting with the Lazy Boy Foundation to get money for the community center. The director did not make it to that meeting. If I was on a board and my director missed a meeting for funding, he would be held accountable for that. And if the city council was letting the board run and the director is not making these important meetings, is blowing them off, I would hold you guys accountable for that. I own my own business. I run my own consulting firm. I am an engineer. I have 2 full-time jobs, 2 full-time careers. I work for the state of Michigan as the job placement specialist for MRS. I did that by holding myself accountable. And if you guys feel that what you guys did was great and it was a good decision, I believe you guys. I believe Councilwoman Vine from 3rd Precinct. I see her every day out there talking to the different constituents. When people need problems, they don't know who to go to for the resources, they come see Councilwoman Vining. Essentially, she is a wraparound counseling service. You can come to her and ask her for anything. She does it because she loves it. So it breaks my heart. When she made a decision, it was unpopular. For whatever reason, she thought it was best. And now the whole community is upset and up in arms. Everybody's in their feelings. But nobody's holding each other accountable. So, I don't know everything. I appreciate the board for you guys taking a stance and making a hard decision. Whether I agree with it or I do not agree with it is irrelevant. I praise you guys for having the fortitude to make those decisions. I praise the board for all the work that they've been doing. And Mr. Hill, the director, he's done a lot of good work. Everybody does work every day. Do I agree with everything? No, I do not. But I'm not supposed to. That's why we are individuals. So, thank you guys. Councilwoman Vining, thank you. And the community may be upset and they may disagree with you or for whatever, but I know that you did it because you thought that it was in the right decision. Councilman Lamore, you also did it. You voted in your way because you thought it was the right way. All you guys took a stance and you guys are all taking flat. I want to praise you guys for having the fortitude to take a stance and make a tough decision. I love the center. I hate to see the board get disbanded, Remember, I talked about accountability, praise, and I was into accountability. So now, since the board has held, since the city council has held the board of Arthur Community Center accountable, you guys have made plans, you guys have alternatives you guys want to do. I hope that you guys, at the end of the day, sit there and hold yourselves to the same accountability that you held these volunteer board members who, in whatever reason, may or may not have fell short in your opinion, in my opinion, or whoever's opinion. It's an opinion. It's not a fact. My opinion doesn't matter. It's not a fact. And y'all's are just opinions. They're not facts. So I hope that you guys hold yourselves to the same accountability that you held these other people who gave their time also. Just like when I hold people accountable, I also expect them to hold me accountable. So thank you guys for taking a stance. And please, in the future, hold yourselves accountable to the same standards that you held everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir.
Michael Smith, 624 West Vienna. I would ask the council to reconsider the motion made at last meeting in regard to ending the lease agreement with the Arthur Lesso Community Center nonprofit. I know Mr. Pastu submitted several different options for the city council to consider. I would ask that the city council, again, do their best to work with the ALCC nonprofit, secure funding for them so that they can be successful, help them to understand the financial responsibilities that they must take for this community. For any other nonprofits, I do represent a nonprofit that through community dollars invests north of $60,000 yearly in that organization so that it can run programming in that community. They have done a stellar job of providing programming. I engage quite often with that organization to make sure that that programming is running appropriately, and it has. I don't know what I would do with many of the partnerships that I have had, that the United Way has had, that organized labor has had with that organization to make sure that we're impacting our entire community. And that gives us an outlet in order to make that happen. My fear is that if the city takes this over as one of its departments, that some of the funding, some of the partnerships, some of the things that we have brought to bear would cease to exist. So I encourage you to reconsider that, to put efforts into making sure that that nonprofit is doing what they need to do to ensure to this board and to the community that they're doing the things that they must do with their reporting. Mr. Sharp came up here and talked about assisting that nonprofit, their board specifically, to help them be more productive. I would encourage you to consider that. Many partners make light work, and this is not something that in 90 days, or at this point probably less than 90 days, could actually happen. I think I heard Vince refer to 2 years and some of the things that he had suggested to this council. And I would ask that you reconsider, again, allowing that 90 days to put that lease agreement back into place and work together with us to try and make that nonprofit successful. So thank you for your time. I encourage you, again, please reconsider the 90-day lease agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is Roosevelt Barnes. My address is 17215 Maryland, Southfield, Michigan. I would also ask that the council rescind their decision and reconsider helping the board. You know, as Marty was talking about, I'm a coach too. I've coached high school, college, I've coached grade school. I coached a lot of kids at the community center. I'm a product of the community center. Okay? I'm mentored by Al Capicilli, Joe Jarmo, all the people from the community center. And this is really tough for me. because, man, let me get myself together for a second.
Sure, take a second.
Because, you know, if you want to help people, you know, as a coach, people in the stands, they sit back and they criticize and they critique the kids out there on the floor. But a teacher stops and he teaches. He sees what the problem is, then he brings them in and we go over some film and we teach and we come up with a strategy. And then we go back to practice and we teach some more and we continue to teach. So if there's an issue with the board, then where is the help and where is the teaching, Mr. Vince? If you're there and you see that it's dysfunctional and you're in the room, then help it to become functional. And Mr. Michelangelo and all the rest of if you see there's an issue there, then help them to be successful. I know that had not there been a community center, I wouldn't have been successful in life. And as far as the whole community, when I come back through town, I don't live in Monroe anymore, but I got relatives here. Monroe is in my heart because I'm from here. When I pass through the community center, I see people, volleyball players from all over this county playing, and they ain't just from the east side. When I walk in, I see programs down there. I seen one of the Harwood kids down there mentoring some kids. And I stopped by and talked to, I can't think of his name offhand, but anyway, he's Ed Harwood's senior son. He's down there mentoring kids. I used to mentor kids down there, running a program down there when I was here. So they talk about accountability and they talk about you guys' decision. Okay? Work with the people. And if you want to make it a broader based program, okay, then you got to go get the people on the other side of the town. Jeff Kaiser is a friend of mine. Jeff Kaiser used to go to the YMCA. I told Jeff Kaiser, come to the community center. Jeff Kaiser came to the community center. He earned an athletic scholarship because he came to the community center and worked with us. Because I reached out to Jeff Kaiser as one of my teammates when I was here and playing high school basketball. I understand if you want something to be successful, then you got to reach out to people and you got to teach. It's easy to criticize and make an analysis, okay, but where is the help coming from? Where's the help coming from? And yes, it is on the east side of Monroe, okay, but you got kids from all over the community coming in there. Ray Lowers, if you listen to him, he brought his basketball team down there every year from Monroe Catholic Central. Every year he did. I brought my teams when I coached, even when I wasn't, when I coached at Monroe High, I coached away from here, I brought them back to the community center. Because that's where my home, and I wanted them to see that. I wanted to partake of the culture there, a culture of competitiveness, a culture of success. There's a lot of us that come out of the community center and we're successful because of the community center, because of what we learned in the community center. And I know myself, I would help at the community center because I always speak of people help me. Whether it was at the community center, Monroe High School, college, whatever, I got help. But I would like for you all to rescind your decision, work with the new president of the board back there, work with the board and help them. Help them to be successful. It's easy just to say, oh, let's take the money away. Let's do this. But I've worked here in Monroe. I worked at the YMCA. I worked here at this Parks and Recreation Center. I worked at the community center. I worked at the Tot Lot. There's a different culture at each one of these places. There's a uniqueness at the community center that you could partake of if you go down there and invest some time into it. So my time is up, but I just want to say, I think that y'all should rescind the decision and reach out and work with the people. Help the people, because that's what it's about. You got to teach. And if they're on shortfalls, okay, then you have to teach. Okay? One last thing. You know, I'm a basketball player, okay? A former basketball player. And as I told you, I coach, okay? I learned how to play basketball at the community center. I'm the only basketball player in Monroe County to ever be drafted by the NBA. Why? The community center and the work I put in and the coaches and teachers that I had along the way, the help I had along the way, the encouragement I had along the way. And that's what is needed there. Some help, some encouragement, some people working with to elevate things up. It's easy, like I said, to look and say what ain't going on, but make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks,
Mr.
sir.
Clark and the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Isaac Smith, 8080 Second Street. First thing that came to mind when I came in here was that I've been in here one other time. The last time I was in here, it was a presented check to Paula Whitman for $14,900 to help save Paula's house. I've heard a lot about the failures of the board, the community center, the programs in whole, but what I haven't heard anything about is the successes. Has anybody reached out to anyone who has come out of community center and you know, doing relatively well in life or something like that? I haven't had a call from Mr. Pastel. I've got a call from Mayor Clark to sit on a symposium with Congressman Dingell. I've sit on a board with former Mayor Worrell to sit as the chairperson for renewable energy. Bring that program here. And I just, I know I would not have been the person or been in the position I am, the management field where I am today, had it not been the community center. As Rosie had alluded to, you know, it's what brought us up to be not just athletes, but friends and gave me a sound foundation of family. It is a family center for me. People that I run across now that used to be small tykes when I was coming through the community center, and I remember I was a small tyke coming through the community center. But you know, there's no reaching back for the successes, and I heard somebody talk about generating revenue, and I haven't heard any fundraiser ideas coming up or something like that. They want to close Paula's house, but you know, didn't have that happen because she reached out and asked for some help. The board needs some help there. I mean, it's talking about pulling the plug or whatever. Who's going to go down that drain? You know, it's not just the programs. You're talking about lives and futures. The programs are there in place, and for me, to mentor and to raise one child is worth the funding here in Monroe. And there are more people that come on from the to the east side or to a community center. Is, you know, all types of athletes and people I still talk to today about being down at the community center from the west side of town, from out of town. It is a an oaks of righteousness. It is a place where that oak tree has been planted there, and it's not ready to be cut down. It may need some digging around and maybe need some fertilizing, but it may need some pruning, and that may happen with the board or whatever needs to be done. But I think we need to reach out and find out what made that community center successful. What things in the past, what programs in the past were the citizens involved with that made it successful? How can we bring those ideas back? Do we need to reach out to some of the people who are still in the community or that maybe can give us some ideas of, hey, what made it work? What did it take to make you continue to go there and thrive. How did you do that? But I have not heard any of those ideas. I haven't heard anything about, let's find out what was successful and go back. Let's go back to the roots of that, of the community center. And sometimes, you have to take pruning. Sometimes to take a few steps forward, you have to take 1 or 2 steps back. Study yourself and move forward. So I hope you reconsider, taking over the community center or shutting it down or pulling the plug or whatever. I didn't understand the third option Mr. Pastel had mentioned. Heard the first two, but didn't hear the explanation of the third option for the recommendation from the manager. But I think that we need to, not in haste, but carefully think things through. Take all options, not just some, and work collectively to make the best decision for the future, not just for the east side of Monroe, but for this community, because it is the community center, and it's not just the east side. It affects all citizens of this city. And before we do move forward, let's examine what we have. Let's maybe take a look at some things that are successful and reach out to those that maybe, hey, I have some ideas. Because it takes all of us to make this work, not just some, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ike. Other comments from those present here this evening? Any other comments? If there is, please step forward. Name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Charles Bill, 1650. I got a complaint about yesterday I was going to work.
Okay, hold on, Charles. Is this about the Arthur Community Center?
No.
Okay, thank you, because I know you weren't when we started chatting. There is going to be time at the end of the meeting after some other comments for comments not related to an agenda item as well. So we will, please hold on, and I'm sure we'll be there soon. Other comments from those present here this evening regarding the presentation and discussion at hand? Seeing no other, I don't know if there's any council comments. If not, we actually go to council comments. Clerk, what's the next item on the agenda, please?
The next item on the agenda is council comments.
That's it, council comments. It is June, so Councilman Felder, comments this evening.
Nothing in general, but if I can go back a step and just have some comments regarding the last item.
Sure.
I just want to reiterate and make it abundantly clear that among the proposals that were presented by City Manager Pastou this evening, not one of them was to close the center. The city has a commitment to that neighborhood and the people of this community to maintain the operations of that center. We will try and do that one way or another. There is no plan at this time to close the center in any way. We plan on continuing the operations just in a different form if we cannot reconcile currently what's going on with the board. I can't tell you why the rest of council made the decision they made. I can tell you why I made the decision that I made. And the situation that we were presented with in our last meeting was that except for the first quarter expenditure report, we were provided no financial documents that outline the expenditures of the ALCC's operations. We had no budget for the center. We've not been provided the bylaws. We've not been provided, I don't know what documents we have. I can only tell you what's arrived on my desk.
I haven't given you the bylaws, but I do have them.
Yeah, you may have them.
I
do not. And we don't have what the fund balance is. If we receive those financial documents, if the board undergoes certain structural organizational refits and works its bylaws out and maintains the confidence of this body in its operations going forward, I'd be more than happy to reconsider my vote. But we did not have those documents last meeting. We do not have those documents this meeting. If we receive them sometime in the next 2.5 months, I would be certainly happy to reconsider this proposal. Another item would be just to not construe the city manager's proposals as the city council's position. There were several proposals that were presented this evening. I can tell you that I do not support all of them. I do not support the city. I would put the the city taking direct control of the operations of the ALCC Center as probably the last decision I would make on that rung of proposals. I think it's important that it be an independently run organization, that it be run like a nonprofit as it has been now. And we would hope to work with that nonprofit. We would also hope that partners who are partnering with the center now would continue to do that. That, of course, is going to be their decision. I can tell you that we have tried to help the ALCC board in that we're still funding it. We're funding it right now. I am committed to funding it throughout the duration of our lease, as long as it may continue. The third and fourth quarters of the city's fiscal year, there were certain conditions put on the $70,000 that they were to receive. And it seems that we are at this juncture now because those conditions have not been met. So an alternative path that we could find ourselves on is that the city says you may continue operating whatever you please, but you're going to do it without any funding from the city of Monroe. And we did not do that because we feel that hurt the wrong people. Not that we want to hurt anyone, but it would hurt the programming of the center. It would hurt the kids and the residents that the center provides services to. We did not take that action. We are funding it now. We will continue funding it as long as the ALCC board is inhabiting that facility. We have a commitment to that neighborhood. We have a commitment to the ALCC, be it represented by the ALCC board or a different body. So if the organizational and structural and financial issues are remedied, and I would hope to work with the board in that. I believe that the board has attended to training that was provided to by City Council, and the city manager himself sits on the board. I would hope that he is proactive in his dealings and his suggestions in how to improve the board. That would certainly be my hope. He is a resource that is offered to you in order to achieve that end. I hope that we can work together to get past this and to resolve any issues that may exist now. I can tell you that the situation as it is, if the vote were to happen tonight, and I were to have the information that I do now and that I did at the last meeting, I would make the same decision. I hope that sometime in the next 2.5 months we are provided with different information and a different situation so that we may revisit this item and we may make a different decision. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitman.
Yes, as most of you know, I do run Paula's house, and I did go to Ike Smith. Actually, I called him sobbing because I had a HUD grant and we had misused funds. And, you know, we're a 501c3. We misused the funds they were paying our rent, and we bought the house that is on Monroe Street. I didn't know you weren't supposed to buy the house. So they came and they audited us, and they said we had to pay them $14,000 in order to keep receiving funds. And I called Ike crying, and he and his church helped us come up with that $14,000. I also, and I believe the mayor might remember this, we also had to answer to the mayor because we had come to the mayor about opening Paula's house to get their approval. So when I seconded, Mr. Ike Angeli's motion, I did that because there's nothing that you don't want to lose your 501c3. You don't want to have to try to get that status back. And if you want funding, you have to keep those reports. You have to report to them. You have to make sure that you're reporting, to the people that you're renting to. And if you're not doing your funding properly, they will come and take your nonprofit status away from you. And then how are you going to get grants? I didn't want to see that happen. To you, most of you, it was a mean thing to do. To me, it was an aha thing that now we can all work together and we can turn this around and we can make the center what, the best that it can be. Because, Rosie, you are a product and you've been, you're a role model for so many people. And that's the way we want it to stay. But there's certain things you have to do in order to stay open. I learned that lesson a hard way. I had a federal HUD person standing in the kitchen of Paula's house telling me that if anyone would have read my grant, I never would have gotten it. He said somebody didn't read this. So otherwise Paula's house wouldn't be there. And I've realized how important it is to hang on to your 501c3. And that's my goal for the center. Not to tear them down, but to help them be a success. It might, sometimes the good is the enemy of the bad. You look at something and you think, well, this is good, but are you going to settle for that? Because if you settle, it's not really a good thing. You can make it better. And that's what my goal is. Being on city council, being involved with this, having my experience. I feel like I have suffered for you. I've been through the same things. So, yeah, this doesn't have to be a bad thing. This can be the best thing that ever happened to the center, if you let it be. But we have to work together. Thank you.
And Councilman Michelangelo.
Your Honor, I was the one that brought this up, and if I had to do it again, I would bring it up again. Unlike Councilman Felder, who's relatively new to the council, I've been working with the mayor and former councils on the ALCC for the last 3 to 4 years. We're the ones that helped them with their strategic plan. We're the ones that provided them consulting services through Florence Buchanan to try to educate and train the board on governance and leadership and board activity. We're the council, the former council, the three of us plus the mayor with the former council is the one that renegotiated the lease with ALCC. In the old lease, the city's contribution was $140,000. Out of that contribution, $16,000 was taken out of that $140,000 to pay for utilities. The council said no, that $16,000 is being taken away from the kids, so the lease agreement was amended to provide $140,000 plus $16,000 or $156,000 in total. So the council has done, in my opinion, quite a bit to support the community center facility and the neighborhood. In addition, as Mr. Pastu mentioned, the city was the recipient of $100,000 that went into repairing the mechanical and the roof. And the city council over the last 2 years has set aside money in the community development block grant to spend $300,000 on retrofitting and improving the commercial kitchen at the ALCC. In addition, we're putting aside $1.5 million to completely redo the park, Labor Park, including all new equipment, play equipment, putting in a splash park for the kids. So we're putting a lot of investment in that facility for the neighborhood and the children. Now, the issue that I have is that the board who is operating the facility is not operating it appropriately, okay? I have no intention of closing the facility. When pushed by a couple of council people relative to decision-making, I said, if we can't find the appropriate provider to run that facility, then we close it until we do, because it's taxpayer money. And we all have to understand this. This is taxpayers' money that's going into a nonprofit, which has not been accountable. So we have a fiduciary interest to protect the taxpayers' funding, and that's what we're doing. Now, unlike Councilman Felder, I'm not going to give the board this dream of, you get your act together, maybe we will reconsider. As one of the council people on the board, I would prefer getting another provider that can come down, another nonprofit that can come down and run the programs, and the city can continue funding them. I don't think anybody on the council, including the mayor and the council, has any inclination to close the center and not provide services to the kids. That's the least thing that we want to do. But as Councilman Whitman said, and I agree with, Sometimes you have to take a hard decision in order to make an improvement. And we hope that by doing this, we will actually improve the serviceability of ALCC for the residents, the community, and the kids. So I know it was a tough decision. When I was asked today, how you feeling about coming to the council meeting? I said, it's like when my dad told me, go out in the backyard and pull a stick because you're going to get a whipping. So I knew what was coming tonight, but that's just part of being on council. You have to make tough decisions. 4 years ago, part of this council made the decision to close the hockey arena, where we had kids lined up and sitting in front row here on the floor with their hockey jerseys on. Okay? Council went ahead and extended that for another 6 months, almost a year. We spent another $300,000 of taxpayers' money, not including the $350,000 that we pay for the building. It came to a point where we had to say enough's enough, we have to change. There, it was closed. There was no, let's find another provider and let's keep it open. Here, we're saying we want to terminate the lease with the nonprofit that's running it, with the idea that we'll either get another nonprofit in, or as the city manager is recommending, in the interim, the city would take over the operation and employ some of the people there to provide the services. But the bottom line is we have no intention in closing the facility. We just want to make it better. That's all I have to say, Your Honor. Thanks.
Councilwoman Varney.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know that many of you are upset about the decision that the council made. Some of you are in particularly upset with me, but I think that I have a more of a unique and insightful view on how the board is operated, because I did sit on the ALCC board for 3 years. For those of you who spoke, all of you sit on boards, and if I were able to have a dialogue with you, I bet you couldn't tell me of any board that you currently or in the past sat on where you did not have an accurate accounting of the finances. That's why, yes, I resigned from the board, but Lee stated that I may have been able to improve that. I tried that for many, many months. If anybody who sits on the board or works on the administration were to be honest about it, they will tell you Councilwoman Vining kicked, screamed, and yelled about getting those accurate reports over and over and over again. So it's not that we're jumping the gun. It's not that we haven't considered these things. Mr. Freeline could tell you, I sat in the board meetings and stated many, many times, if this continues to go on in the fashion that it's going, if we operate in this fashion, the city is going to cancel your lease. I've argued with board members over and over. I finally left because the visions were so opposite from what I thought should be done and the rest of the board. So a lot of things that, and I said this last year because a lot of you were here last year, and not that I've seen many of you in between those times. Some of you I have, and I have worked with on community events in that year, but others I haven't seen since last year when you when the rumor got out that we wanted to close the community center. So I lost my train of thought, but what I'm trying to say is that there was a comment made about overdue bills and wages. There were comments made about why that we said that the money was missing and all that. I don't know why the newspaper printed the story the way that it was printed, but again, we never said that money was stolen, and we never said that we wanted to close the community center. I don't know why that rumor. I think Facebook allows those rumors to perpetuate, but I have to say, I would not change my vote today. I might lose some partnerships. I might lose some supporters because I do a lot of work in the community, but I have to I have to be concerned about the community center first and foremost, the children in the neighborhood. Um, Not necessarily that people think we are being cruel or wanting to take something away from the east side. Um, I would think with the unique insight that I do have that people would take account of that instead of thinking that I'm trying to do something or that we as a council are trying to go against the community center. A lot of the reason why we are here and some of the responsibility that I do take is in the many years of wanting to protect the community center from scrutiny, and because I know there is a perception that we're kind of like the redheaded stepchild because we're over on the east side, and I understand the cultural and the racial divisions that exist in the city, even though we don't like to admit to them and talk about them. Some of those are the reasons why over the years when I sat on the board, instead of reporting to the council as I may have, that I might have felt the situation was dire maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but instead I rolled my sleeves up and did actual work, real work, as if what the staff would do, what they get a paycheck to do, to try to keep the community center afloat, to try to keep the community center in a good light. So after 3 years of which I've been, and I say it all the time, I've been doing programming at the community center for 20 years. But in these last 3 or 4 years, maybe we could be further if I didn't try to handle the situation on my own or within the board and the staff at the ALCC. Maybe if I would have came up here and told the board that I thought it was as dire as it was 3 years ago, maybe we would already have a new nonprofit in there running it. It's not personal for me, it's business. This is not the first difficult decision I've had to make involving the third precinct specifically. But I wouldn't change my vote because I've never sat on a board where um, there's not an agenda at a meeting. There's not financial reports. If you all think that that is normal or that is acceptable, I really don't even know how to take that. I don't know how to take it because I know you're not sitting in a labor council meeting or MCOP housing meeting or a Salvation Army meeting or any other meeting and accept the fact that you can't have an accurate accounting of your financials, and to beg for that for 4 and 5 months and to have verbal arguments about that. Why don't I have this information? I need this information. We have to have it. And then with the funding agreement, I warned the board, got to be 2 years from the time of the strategic plan. We can't meet 3 or 4 of these. We can't meet 1 or 2. We have to meet this whole funding agreement. We signed this agreement and we said we would do A, B, and C. So if we only did A and B, it's not acceptable. I don't want to get into a lot of, and then with the funding, I asked myself if the ALCC is so able to go out and raise funds, how do you get a grant without a budget? How do you do that? What agency is going to fund you without an accurate accounting of your finances? I don't know any foundations or any grantors that will do that. That's the first thing they're going to ask you for. So I understand people are passionate about the community center, and I don't mean no disrespect because I know a lot of people do a lot of things that maybe are not out in the limelight. So maybe that's why I don't see you guys around the community center or around the neighborhood until there's an issue. I'm not saying that you don't help, but those of us who are there grassroots, sleeves rolled up and feet on the ground, we're going to be there no matter who funds, who manages the community center. I've said it to the staff, I've said it to the board. I'm gonna be here regardless if I'm on the city council, or if I'm on the community center board. This is what I do. I advocate for my community and I do events and programs in my community. I've done it long before I've been around the city council, long before I've been around the ALCC board. I was I was asked to serve on this board for years and years and years, and I didn't because of the reputation of the board. And like I said, I don't want to get into all little specifics about it or whatever, but some things are unacceptable. And I did try very, very hard, like I said, to the point of having verbal arguments to get that paperwork, to get that information. You talk about the accountant. I went to the accountant, I went to the staff, I went to the board president. I even went to some members in the city. So I don't know what else that the public wants us to do. What I want to do is see the community center engaged at its best and highest use. And I want the public to understand that we have never said we were going to close the community center. We never said it, not one time. We never took away the funding. If I'm not mistaken, it's funded for 2019 and 2020. We gave 16,000 more dollars than what we have been allocating all those years. I don't know what else. I could argue a lot of points in the I know that a letter was sent to several of the council members. It was not sent to me, but of course I got the letter. I could argue several points one by one in that letter. I won't do it here, but to me, it's done already. We sent the letter saying that we wanted to terminate the lease. I personally, I can't speak for the whole council, but I believe we did it because we want to see the community center improve. I know that there are some things going on there, and I know that there are some people who have become successful, who participated at the community center. Bring a program over there now. Come now. I don't know. I'm there a lot, so I don't know. I'm not seeing you guys there like that. I'm not seeing the public there like that. I'm not saying that you're not, but bring some programs, bring some grants, bring some cash, some finances with you. Yeah, we do need to work together, but if the kids can have creative, innovative programming, to me, it doesn't matter who we're working with, because if we're presenting the proper programming and the proper services, personally, it doesn't matter who's the nonprofit that we're working with. It doesn't matter to me as long as they're being accountable and being creative and innovative in their programming. For me, that's my personal wishes. So again, I would not change my decision if the vote comes back up here tonight. I would not vote any different. And and that's with the love that I have for the people and the children of the third precinct and the community center. That's all, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Germaini.
Well, I won't go into the numbers or anything like that. It's apparent that the ALCC has been struggling, and it's unfortunate. The decision is very emotional for all of us, considering the future of the leadership of the ALCC. However, it is a necessary decision, given the information that we as a council have been given. It's tough, but there has to be a change. I've had people come to me and say, well, let's do this down at the center, let's do that at the center. Great ideas. Okay, then let's help them do that. I love the community center. I love the programs that they do, but I do think that we can do a lot better. And the people in the community deserve better. And there has to be accountability for everything across the board. in order to maintain your funding. So I too, I'm saddened by the decision, but it is necessary. Thank you.
Councilman Lamore.
I appreciate everyone being here tonight. All your comments are taken to heart. I really appreciate your passion towards the ALCC. It's needed now more than ever. The board has shown its need for help. Changes are needed. My decision was based on my lack of hearing from the board itself. As Councilman Michelangeli stated, I'm relatively new to the council, as is Councilman Felder, Councilman Germaini. We don't know all the in-depth conversations that have been had about the ALCC, and I just truly want to hear everything that's going on from their mouths. So that was my reason for saying no. Not that I wouldn't have said yes tonight, knowing that there are a lot of problems, but the future would have been uncertain anyway with the funding from the city, based on the tax situation with the DTE, with DTE, I'm sorry. So one way or another, something has to be accomplished with either the ALCC or another nonprofit that's going to function at that center. We have to figure it out, and we have to figure it out now. We can always blame people for something. There's always blame to be put on somebody's chest. But the people that stand out are the ones that are going to take the responsibility to take the next step forward. And that's what's on our backs right now, right here as a council, is to figure out what to do and how to do it. The action's been taken. It's too late to take that back. Yes, we can rescind on that, but I don't think that's necessarily the proper thing to do. We need to go forward with what's the best thing for the ALCC, for that center. I don't want to see the kids and the seniors left out to pasture. That's not the right thing for this city. Never has been. We've seen a lot of people here tonight that have been products of the ALCC. I'm proud to say that I know some of these people. They're great people, and it's because of the ALCC that they're great people. We need to figure it out, and it's not just us up here, it's us as a community, the city of Monroe. We have to figure it out, and it's got to come now. It can't come later. So maybe this is the best direction we could take, is to say it stops here. Now let's go forward. Let's stop the blame. Let's make things happen for the ALCC. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Well, I do have a few comments. I will make comments about the ALCC and some of the discussion, but first I want to start with items that were on the agenda that I think are important that everybody has an understanding when it comes time to decision-making is here. But one of the items on tonight's agenda was board appointments and commissions. So I want to just recognize and thank those that have volunteered to serve on the boards that were up for renewal or new appointments regarding the Downtown Development Authority, Local Officers Compensation Commission, the Port Commission, Lake Erie Transit, and also the Business Development Corporation. So the other item I have, I think, which is, I'm going to have comments on the ALCC that you may want to hear, but if you want to leave, that's fine. But the Community Development Block Grant funds, if you haven't seen them, I suggest you go and look at what those are because of how they impact the entire city, as well as the ALCC. And there's items and programs there that are important. Regarding the ALCC, I'm not going to go and get in depth because what I said, what I might have to say is what you've already heard. I don't think we need to be repetitive. I am going to reach back to the start of when one of the council members mentioned those that were here 2-3 years ago as we started this with Eastern Michigan University. I know there's some of the people that are here were on the board at the time and had promise about what we needed to put in structure in place. Some of those board members may no longer be on the board and other members came in. But I think my comments at first, again, I don't question the interest and sincerity of the board and the people that are here. And I thank everybody for coming for your comments. But I also think it's important to make recognition on both ends, things that I recognized over the years I think need to be at least be accountable for. The bylaws were revised, and when you write bylaws, the purpose for that is to follow them. But I know that over the last time frame here, where there's been board members have departed for maybe whether it be personal reasons or moving on, whatever it may be, and other people have been added to the board. But the bylaws state how that occurs, and I'm not sure that was followed. So if you have people that come in the board and leave the board, or new people find themselves as a seat on the board, but it's not gone through the committee, it's not going through a vetting process of the entire board, then you end up with not knowing why people may or may not be there. So I think that's one item that I've noticed. The funding and the items there, it wasn't a question about the funding spent, it was about the accountability and where it was up to date or not. But I also, one of the challenges that came with them, this was in partnership with the ALCC, was there was a recognition, and the board recognized there was additional fundraising that had needed to be done. And we provided alternatives and ways in which that could be done. But what happened was, and I know they get funding from the Commission on Aging, but unfortunately, they almost lost that funding. Now, they are funded, but not to the same level, so it's not increasing, it's actually decreasing. And it's critical to the activities at the center to provide, whether it be youth and seniors. And if the Commission on Aging is providing funding to make those programs work, we can't have it decline in resources. So I'm going to talk about the positive because that's what somebody asked for, and I think that's rightfully so. I think there's much that does happen, and there's much that is value of the at the center and the commitment of the volunteers and the board. They wouldn't be taking the youth to Washington, D.C. and actually learn about that. I think I look around the room, I'm sure many people here had opportunities in high school, but we're taking youth that probably haven't even left the city of Monroe at times, potentially, and giving them that exposure, that experience, that knowledge, and youth and life experience for the future. There's educational opportunities with that come up. But those educational opportunities are also outside the city of Monroe. It doesn't mean you have to leave, but it's nice to expand somebody's horizon, especially at the youth age and the opportunities they see forward. You know, the youth mentoring that is there and the volunteers that come down to the center, I'm thankful for that. And I know that the one was mentioned, and I can think of the couple others, come down and do reading with the youth, spend time and sit with the youth. The senior meals, I think we can improve and enhance how we do that. I think it should be, but that doesn't mean they're not doing programs and opportunities for the youth the seniors to be there and have their meals, but also activities. But then I'll get to the other side. For the past 3 years, I've asked and provided information regarding activities of youth programs that I think would be critical for our youth. And I think athletics is a foundation. Being in athletics, you learn about teamwork, you learn about participation, you'll get exposed to other a diverse population. And I look around many of the athletes in this room that I know that have those opportunities, and it is life lessons as well. But that's not the only thing the center should be. It is a core of what happens, but I think there's more in what we have to offer youth today. The Monroe Community Ambulance, and of course with our fire department as well, there was a 911 camp that youth could go to. It's a block and a half away, and we don't seem to get our youth there to be a participant. But there's 2 programs this year, one in Monroe Township, and I think the other one's, I don't know, I think it's Bedford Township. So why don't we have that program here? Because it might be that youth that sits and learns about health, learns about life-saving, learns the opportunity that, geez, I can get a job doing this. And all I have to do is, when I graduate, is go to the Monroe County Community College to a 2-year program and be an EMT in my community. So that hasn't happened. The past 2 weeks, I read in the Monroe News, there were 2 other youth opportunity camp programs. And it makes me wonder, has that been a focus or attention for the board and the director of saying, boy, we should have this here? Another one that some people think that I'm kind of reaching out is the robotics. And if we want your youth to excel and be in other professions and make a living in tomorrow's world, you better start learning some of those items as well. Find a mentor, find a teacher that will provide that, and put a team together. All you have to do is, there's multiple times and opportunities Monroe High School has and hosts the robotics tournaments. It's a lot of fun. The students are interactive. They're from all over the state of Michigan. So why don't we host an event at the ALCC so our youth can see that there's an opportunity and maybe a job and an opportunity of learning something and think, I can do that. So those are things that have frustrated me over the period of time. So I'm going to give those examples because of decisions that we have to make. I think that the council's never had a position that we're going to close the ALCC, close the center, or close youth programs or senior programs. But we have to find a structure that's going to work and deliver not just what we've done in the past, not what we're doing now, but also in the future as well. Mr. Pastu provided what is alternatives. That's why I asked my question, because I was how that would come to be in a commission. This doesn't negate the opportunity of those that are currently involved with the Arthur Leslie Community Center to be a participant in the future, in whether it's as in a commission board or whatever it might be. But the nonprofit is there to carry forward. We don't, as a council, make appointments to the ALCC board. The board, as a nonprofit, we give them the direction to facilitate and run the center and hire a director. But when the board transitions and there's new people, that happens within boards. But why is it that now we don't know why some of the things are being done or who's sitting on the board? And that's a challenge. I appreciate all those who are willing to volunteer. That's why I mentioned earlier, and I started my comments about boards and commissions. You can't rely on the city to do everything. We need boards and commissions and people to be a participant if we're going to be successful. Otherwise, you're just leaving everything to the council to make decisions on. I've said that long ago, many years. And we need the support. But in that support, it has to be functional as well. So moving forward, I think there's alternatives that the city manager provided in relation to alternatives. That's what we'll have to vet through over the time frame. This is the start point, and I'll see where we're going to end as the council continues to discuss. And we, of course, will always welcome comments that people have. Those are my comments for this evening. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
I just have a couple of housekeeping items regarding taxes. The summer city taxes are due June 30th, which falls on a Sunday this year. So the treasurer's office, my office, will be open from 8 until 6, beginning Wednesday, June 26th, the 27th, the 28th, and also Monday, July 1st. So you have until Monday, July 1st to pay your summer taxes, and we will extend our hours without adding to our budget, I might add, to provide some extra service for the residents of the city. Additionally, we are still hearing from residents that they have mailed their tax payments and that they aren't arriving here at City Hall. So I am really encouraging anyone, it's the same plea that I make at election time with absentee ballots. At this point, I would urge you to think about maybe not mailing your tax payment. I understand some people have no choice, but we're getting kind of close to the deadline. We will take postmarks, but we still have to receive the actual payment in the mail. So we do have a drop box located at City Hall. It's along the sidewalk. We will be here from 8 until 6, beginning June 26th. We will be here the 27th. We will be here the 28th. We will be here the 1st. Please give us a call. Again, I'm not saying don't mail it, but we're getting kind of close now, and we want to make sure that everybody who mails their payment, we want to make sure that we receive them. So I've talked with the post office, and there isn't, unfortunately, a lot that they can do because they can't tell a tax payment from any other piece of mail that's coming, that's going through the mail system here, and everything still does go to Detroit, and they can't stop that at this point. So the post office was unable to offer any solutions. So I'm just doing the best I can to be available and to have alternative ways other than the mail at this point if you want to try to make your payment. And please call our office. We're there every day, 734-384-9140. We do not close for lunch, and we will do our best to help you out with the situation. But I'm not trying to raise any alarm bells, but it is a concern, and we've heard it from various residents, and so I just think it was fair to let residents know there seems to be a bit of a problem this year.
Your Honor.
Councilman?
Just a point of clarification. I think Councilman Felder was going to start with the regular council comments, but then asked to go back and talk about ALCC. I don't know if any other council has any non-ALCC comments, but I do. I understand. Do you want
to? I will see if there's other comments.
I apologize for the confusion.
No, I'm good.
I guess the only other comment would be to ask that this form that was presented by the city manager be included in the minutes for this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clerk Treasurer will have it. Thank you. I'll go back
We will,
around. Oh,
I just
sorry.
want to clarify, we include all handouts that are provided for every meeting, in the minutes, so they will be available.
Very good.
And again, and if someone comes to the clerk's counter, we will be glad to show them to them as well.
I'm sorry, I kind of misunderstood that when I was going through. I started with mine. No, that's good. Councilwoman Whitman, any other comments? Okay. Councilman Michelangelo?
Yes, Your Honor, I do. I just passing around a handout. There's enough for city clerk as well. I'd like the city council to consider the enactment of what is referred to as a chronic nuisance ordinance. This type of ordinance, I've cited a article that appears very frequently on Google relative to this. This concept started back in 2006, and what it is it's a ordinance that has a metric in it. And basically, what happens is if a public safety department, in our case, the police department, frequent a residence several times a year for a non-emergency, that at some point in time, the city then can start charging the property owner for those services. I know for a fact that there's a house on Godfroy which is repeatedly visited by police, and it's for non-emergency. It's primarily for drinking, it's for partying outside, it's for noise violations, it's for fighting. On the social media, when I threw this idea out, people responded that there are houses on North Rossler Street, Arbor Avenue, Hollywood Drive, and the list keeps populating every single day. And some of the residents have said that it's not uncommon for the police to be at someone's residence at least 10 times a year. I think that is a wasteful use of public resources, and it is kind of almost systemic with the conversion of owner-occupied to rental-occupied property. Now, we've talked as a council on strategies to improve our neighborhoods. We cannot rely on a building inspector or a blight inspector to turn our neighborhoods around. It has to be more of a holistic approach that includes departments like departments of public services and the police department, the fire department, and other agencies. But what I'm asking council, and I guess this would be the city manager and the attorney, we do have on file, as the council is aware, the drug paraphernalia ordinance. And the council 2 years ago actually invoked that ordinance on two pieces of property. One was boarded up on East 2nd Street. The other one, the property owner decided to sell it because the council had said, if you don't do something, we're going to remove the occupant and we are going to close down the house. We haven't seen any of those recently. I still think that they're probably out there, but they're not being fed up the food chain to us. Because when we did that, we had those public hearings, it really did send a message out into the community that we were not going to tolerate rental properties specifically that were dealing in any type of drug-related activity. However, the chronic nuisance ordinance is beyond that. And I would really like council to consider the enactment of a chronic nuisance ordinance as another tool that we have to improve our neighborhoods. And more importantly, allow people to enjoy their homes and their property. So I wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of it. Take a look at it, go online, take a look at, there's different examples. There's actually copies of ordinances out there that have been done by many communities. I would ask that as part of one of our workshops that the city manager and the city attorney give us kind of a rundown on what that would look like.
Will do.
Thanks, Councilman. Just a comment to that, and if there's other comments, I think having it through the work session will provide not only some additional research by the city attorney or Mr. Pastu, but also I'd like to see if the police, or it could be fire, could be any department, quite honestly, that might have a overextended number of calls for items that are not non-emergency. Maybe we can start collecting some of that data as well, and as they collect that, we can set that up for a work session. That way, we have some we'll know what we're talking about here within the city of Monroe, and then see how we might apply this type of a nuisance ordinance. So I appreciate it. And Councilman Vining, your comments, and then comment on that if you wish.
Yeah, I'm gonna comment on that. You know, I always get nervous when we start talking about nuisances and whatnot, because it's always gonna disproportionately affect my precinct due to the fact that we have a high renter occupied. And I think when we get into these type of nuisances, we need to include homeowners too, because contrary to popular belief, homeowners create nuisance and blight and all of those things. And we can't keep just looking at the renter population and not look at the owner occupied population. Also, it's a fact, there's more police patrolling in the third precinct. And I don't know if this is a fact, but I think that the blight ordinance is in the third precinct more as well. So I'd like to look at those numbers because I can't state that as a fact, but I think that that may be true, just due to the fact that of the income disparities. So I would look into this at the at the councilman's request, but I'd be skeptical about adding further nuisance ordinances that I know will disproportionately affect the people in my precinct. Also, I wanted to invite everybody out Wednesday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. We are having the Juneteenth celebration in the city parking lot behind the Arthur Lesso Community Center. That's 120 East Chester is the address. It's a celebration of the Black Independence Day. It's a national holiday. This is the 155th year that it's been celebrated in the United States. President Trump issued a press statement on it this week. So if you're interested, Google that and you can see what the president has to say about the holiday. We're very excited. It's going to be barbecue, fun, and fun for families and kids. So if you're not doing anything Wednesday, June 19th, between the hours of 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., please join us. Thank you.
Councilman Jermaine, anything further?
Everyone go to the Monroe Community College's website. They are having free boot camps. One is for computer programs, one is for a math boot camp, and the other is for construction and trades. So I encourage anyone to go to the website and see the dates and the criteria for that, but it's free. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lamar?
Yes, Your Honor. Now that Councilman Colangeli has brought this up, I'd like to get some more information on that ordinance, as to how it has worked so far for that community, just to see what the results are of that ordinance. I know it's 13 years should be a pretty good idea how it's worked for them. I'd also like to know what our public safety department felt about it, both sides, the police and fire. And on a totally different note, an article that our city manager sent along to us from a study by Semicog, a new rail service may be being put into place from Toledo to Metro Airport, thus partitioning off to Detroit and off to Ann Arbor, incorporating, I'm assuming, Amtrak. And Monroe was on the list of having a station. So that's very interesting to me, and I think it's of great interest to the city of Monroe. Thank you.
One second. Clerk, anything further? Mr. Pastu?
Just the one item, I'll send in the email some of the delinquent tax parcels that I'll recommend for council to consider for purchase at your July 1st meeting. I was going to go through them tonight, but it's been a long night, and I'll just send it to you, and we can talk further on July 1st.
Very good. Citizens' comments. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
1650 Westfield Lane. Mayor, City Council, yesterday I was walking to work. Tree was down. Called the police, told them that there was a line down. Well, they got the line back up, but they didn't pull the tree off the sidewalk. And I was wondering if you guys can see why they didn't put a tape around it. And on top of that, by the YMCA, the sidewalk is leaning like this down again. And I was wondering if they can take a look at that. And on Lorraine Street, by Telegraph and Lorraine Street, we got water that's coming out like a big puddle, and it's not draining. And I was wondering if they can take it both, look at the corners, and take a look at all the lights. Because the lights, they're not, walking lights are not working right, and sometimes they're not correctly on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. We'll make sure we get those to DPS Engineering. Those are follow-up items there if they need to be cleared or attention needs to be had. Thank you. Yes, sir. Name and address.
Jason Matthews, 1445 Maple Boulevard. Since we talked about blight and stuff, I figured I'd come up here. Right across the street from me is this big lot, and it hasn't been cut this year. So it's about, I don't know, armpit high, and I know the city owns it, so can we get somebody out there to, cut it down?
Is that the end, at the very end of Maple? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure that gets on the list as well for follow-up tomorrow. Yes, sir. Name and address.
Mike Smith, 624 West Vienna. Councilwoman Germaini mentioned the camps going on at the Monroe County Community College. I can't speak to all of them, but I can speak to the building trades. That actually started today. Yes, it was free, but those already started and they are full. So you may want to, when you visit the website, look at the ones that didn't start this week. And the other thing I would say is this is the only reason that this is possible, these camps, specific to the building trades, is because of those building trades that have jurisdiction here in Monroe County sponsor this. So at 30 students at $79 a pop, the building trades sponsor that. They sponsor the materials. So union trades in this community make sure that camp happens so that our students have an opportunity, if they're not currently in a career technical education course at one of our school districts, or if they're not offered at one of our school districts, they have an opportunity to actually do hands-on experience with those apprenticeship coordinators so that they can get a little bit of taste. So I just want to make sure that I address that, because I was a little fearful that perhaps somebody may make a phone call and say, hey, I want to get in the building trade summer camp. Well, I'm sorry, it's already going on and it was full. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening? No further comments. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Whitman? Yes.
Yes.
Germaini? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.